Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday morning to you, and welcome back to Morning Musings. Hope your week's going absolutely fantastic. As you know, I normally film on Sunday mornings, so here it is. It's Sunday morning at 5:30. Got to the office at 3 this morning, did some reading, did some correspondence, and what have you. But it's already been raining outside. I have to tell you, I absolutely love getting to the office early. I really do. It gives me time to meditate and to pray and to do my own personal morning devotions and what have you. And I can read and it's when I do a lot of my research and writing as well. So anyway, I do hope your week is going well. I have no earthly idea what Wednesday's really going to be like, but here we are. Okay, as I promised yesterday, you see, Matthew chapter 25, everyone admits, virtually everyone admits, pardon me, Matthew chapter 25, 1 to 13, the wedding at the second coming of Christ. Okay, Matthew 25, 31 and following, the second coming of Christ. Which means that Matthew 25, 31 and following is what? The time of the wedding. I know the word wedding is not found there. Doesn't matter. If it's the case that Matthew 25, 1 to 13 is the time of the wedding at the second coming of Christ, and if it's the case that Matthew 25, 31 and following is about the second coming, then Matthew 25, 31 and following is what? It's about the wedding of Christ. Now, as I promised you yesterday, and look, I hope you know I'm just hitting highlights here, but keep in mind, I wrote this book. At the time I wrote it, it was kind of my magnum opus. I have another book, Lord willing, Nothing Happens, that should be out before long, that I now consider my magnum opus. It is entitled Resurrection Feast Fulfilled, an investigation of the relationship between Israel's last feast day, Sukkot, and the resurrection. I've had a world of problems with formatting that I've never, ever had before, but I'm really excited about it. But back to this. In this book, which is on special with this book, for the month of May 2023, U.S. orders only. If you bought them independently, separately, paid shipping, you'd pay $57, $58, almost $59. For this month, U.S. orders only, total delivered price $39.95. Go to my website, donkpreston.com and BibleProphecy.com, and just click on the tab at the top. Thank you so much for those of you who have been ordering the books, by the way. Now, yesterday, I shared with you how important and how critical it is to understand and deposit this concept of Zion and the wedding and the coming of the Lord at the time of the destruction of Jerusalem. Look, folks, remember what I just said. When people tried to divide the Olivet Discourse into two different subjects, and they tried to divorce, pun intended, the wedding of Matthew 25, 1 to 13, and therefore the wedding of Matthew chapter 25, 31 and following, from the fulfillment of God's Old Covenant promises made to Old Covenant Israel, that is a massive miscarriage of hermeneutic and exegesis. It's absolutely wrong to do that. Now then, as I promised yesterday, I want to look at the book of Revelation. Point number one, the book of Revelation is about the impending destruction of the harlot city, Babylon. Now, here's something absolutely fascinating, and that is critical. By the way, I develop it extensively in this book from a linguistic perspective. The word harlot that is used in the book of Revelation, its counterpart, its parallel from the Old Testament, is a word that is used 91 times in the Old Testament. As Sebastian Smolars, a noted commentator, has observed, in the Old Testament, the word harlot, prostitute, and parallels. In 86, listen to me, in 86 of the 91 occurrences of that word in the Tanakh, it is used in the context of a bride who has broken the marriage covenant. Do you catch the power of that? Now, this is particularly significant because the book of Revelation is drawing on the Old Testament over and over and over again. It is highly significant also because the city Babylon was in a covenant relationship with Yahweh. This is brought out in Revelation 16:19 by the fact that in her destruction, it is said that God remembered her. Well, the word that is used there for remember is a covenantal word. It means to bring the provisions of a covenant to mind, either positively or negatively in applying the provisions for punishment of a covenant. Now, when people talk about, Babylon, that's Rome. Really? What covenant did God ever have with Rome? Or people tell us, well, it's the Roman Catholic Church at the end of time. What covenant did God have with the Roman Catholic Church? I mean, no offense, ladies and gentlemen, but that's simply not historical. Who is the one people that God had a covenant with that made provision for wrath, for punishment, for destruction? Oh, I don't know. We might read Deuteronomy chapters 28 to 30, Leviticus chapter 26, in which God said to the nation of Israel, if you keep my law, I will bless you. If you break my law, I will bring curses upon you 7 times. And each of the 7 in a graduating focus, a graduating, word improvement is not right. They get worse and worse. Israel is the nation that had a covenant with God. And you see, in the Old Testament, the Hebrew word that is translated as remembered is zakar. Just like the word in Revelation, it carried with it the connotation of a covenant. And God said that when he destroyed Jerusalem, when he destroyed Old Covenant Israel, the corporate body, and saved the remnant, that the Old Covenant existence, the Old Covenant heaven and earth, would no longer be remembered. No more covenant with her. So in both the Old Testament and in the New, we have the promise of a time coming in which God was going to bring the covenantal mandates, the covenantal provisions of wrath against Old Covenant Israel in Jerusalem, against her to destroy her. She would then be forgotten covenantally, that is, except the remnant who would enter into the new covenant, but the old covenant would be forgotten. And, in Jeremiah chapter 3, the Lord said that at the time of the restoration of all 12 tribes, that's the time of the kingdom, that's the time of the resurrection. The Lord says they will no longer go up to Jerusalem and they will no longer say the covenant of the Lord or the ark of the covenant, because it will not be remembered. Do you get that? The ark of the covenant, the Lord said, would no longer be remembered. By the way, I was reading just the other day, I watched a little video on the internet, YouTube, Facebook, whatever, saying, well, we know exactly where the Ark of the Covenant is. Ron Wyatt made that claim some years ago, but he was wrong. You know how I know that all of these, I love all these documentaries. I watch every one of them. Well, an investigation into the search for the Ark of the Covenant. Have they found the Ark of the Covenant? We found the Ark of the Covenant. No, they haven't, ladies and gentlemen. How do I know that? Because there in Jeremiah chapter 3, 15 and 16, and by the way, Jeremiah is written at the time of the Babylonian invasion, when according to 2 Chronicles, they carried off all of the instruments and the vessels of the temple. Now, I know what the tradition is about Jeremiah and the high priest hiding the Ark of the Covenant. I know the tradition, but I know the tradition is false. Why do I know that? Because Jeremiah chapter 3 says, the Ark of the Covenant would no longer be remembered. Listen to me and catch the power of this. Nor will it be built again. Let me say that again. And get out your Bibles. Go to Bible Gateway and look up Jeremiah 3:16. In all of the English translations, you'll see what I mean. It will never be built again. Now look, folks, if God said the ark was never going to be built again, that means guess what? It was destroyed and will never be built again. But you see, this is the time of the restoration of Israel. This is the time of the kingdom. This is the time of the coming of the Lord for the resurrection. This is the time of the coming of the Lord for the wedding. So when we consider the book of Revelation and the word harlot, that it brings to mind a wife who has been unfaithful, that can only be referenced to Old Covenant Jerusalem and Judah of the first century. Have you ever noticed in this light how Jesus 3 times in his public ministry referred to Judah and Jerusalem as the wicked and adulterous generation? Well, you know what? Just like the 10 northern tribes committed spiritual adultery against God, Judah and Jerusalem of the first century had committed adultery against God. What was the fate of the 10 northern tribes for committing spiritual adultery? Oh, divorcement and death. What was to be the fate of Jerusalem and Judah for her adulterous ways? Revelation. Babylon is fallen. Oh, wait a minute. Who is Babylon? It's the city where the Lord was crucified. There can be no doubt about this. And I've had people try to escape that by saying, Jerusalem, Jesus was crucified outside the city. Well, that's really a nonsensical argumentum ad desperatum, because Golgotha was at Jerusalem. It was not at Rome. It was not at any other city. And that's what's funny about this, you see, because people say, well, Jesus wasn't crucified in Jerusalem. It doesn't say he was crucified in Jerusalem. It says it was the city where the Lord was slain. And so here these individuals, they say, well, see, Preston, it doesn't say he was crucified in the city, so it can't be Jerusalem. So, okay, who do they believe that Babylon is? Oh, it's literal Babylon in Iraq. Okay, wait a minute. Jerusalem is excluded because Jesus wasn't crucified in the city, but Babylon is literal Iraq, hundreds of miles away. Or it's Rome, hundreds of miles away. Do you see what I mean? Argumentum ad desperatum. Well, I'm out of time. So next Monday, I'm going to continue this, demonstrating this concept of the wedding. Matthew chapter 25, 31 and following, second coming of Christ. Second coming of Christ is for the wedding. Matthew 25, 1 to 13. The time of the wedding is in fulfillment of God's Old Covenant promises made to Old Covenant Israel to remarry all 12 tribes, the righteous remnant of all 12 tribes. Okay, I'm out of time. Do yourself a favor and get the May special, okay? Just go to my website, donkpresta.com, order the 2 books, save yourself almost $17. All right, I'm out of time. Tomorrow, we'll have another episode with Mike Sullivan and myself as we review and respond to Doug Wilson. And then on Friday, we'll be looking at Steve Gregg's arguments on the resurrection based upon Job chapter 19:25. All right? Thanks for joining me. I'll see you on the flip side.